We're moving on now, and I'll just give another warning. We've got a fantastic guest now, Maya Pope Weidelman, and she's head of communications for the IWGB union, supporting precarious and frontline workers. And she's been fighting for justice since the tragic death of her cousin, which you may have heard of the case. It really is dreadful. Gaia Pope Sutherland. She was a victim of sexual assault and failed by the police and services, like so many women. You can find out more about Gaia's story at justiceforgaia.com. But for now, we're going to listen to Maya tell us about the story of her cousin. So Maya, are you there? Thank you. And as I said, please, a warning that it may trigger, it may be upsetting for people to listen to the story. Thank you, Maya.
Thank you so much, Pamela. It's a real honour to be on such an incredible panel. I didn't think it was possible to feel collective power through a remote video link until I think last night's Sisters Uncut assembly, and I feel it here too. But it shouldn't be me sitting here, it should be Gaia. She would be so proud to see this movement rising up and to be part of it. Gaia was my cousin, but I loved her like a sister, and I'm here to talk about why she's not. Gaia was one of 3 awesome girls born to a strong and loving working class mum, my Auntie Kim. And she was a survivor, but one among many women, a disproportionate and systematically overlooked number of whom are BME women, queer and differently abled women who have paid the highest price for simply existing in the world that white supremacist patriarchal politics have built. With the legal case ongoing, we're still not allowed to speak publicly about the most shocking parts of Gaia's story yet, but here's what I can tell you about her. Gaia was bright, brave, kind, creative, and fiercely loyal. After reporting that she'd been raped by what turned out to be a known sex offender who threatened to kill her and who Dorset police failed to convict, Gaia began to suffer from severe post-traumatic stress. You're less likely, as we've heard, to get a conviction now than you were in the 1970s, with prosecutions falling so far that it's tantamount to the decriminalisation of rape. Dorset police have one of the worst records in the country. And the only court that Gaia ever got to stand in was when the DWP tried to take away her personal independence payments. The post-traumatic stress that the government didn't want to acknowledge forced her out of school, crippled her life, and changed our lives as we struggled to help her get justice or at least appropriate support. It was an uphill battle that we never won for her, but like many of you, I'm determined now to win it for the rest of us. We knew that Gaia was in danger from the moment that she disappeared, distressed and disorientated on the 7th of November, 2017. We knew because we understood that the trauma that follows abuse can be deadly. We had lived in fear of this, demanding and then begging for help for 2 years, while we watched her go in and out of hospitals, one of which allowed her to be assaulted again, with no follow-up care and precious little understanding. So we were terrified because we already knew that none of the police force searching for her understood that. Our search lasted for 11 days. We had to navigate a bogus murder investigation and tensions with the police at a time when it felt like they held hostage any hope we had of seeing our girl again. So we did then what we're doing now. We turned to organise in our community. And if we haven't done that, I think we would be looking for her still. Gaia was 19 when her body was found on a coastal path we used to walk as children. The coroner ruled her death hypothermia, but I call it a death by indifference. 3 years and 2 IOPC investigations later, we are still waiting for the inquest into Gaia's death, which is set for April 2022. That gives me another year to build a campaign for her in the hope that with a strong inquest outcome, we can springboard from that to achieve real change, inspired by those like Marcia Rigg, Sarah Ryan, and Doreen Lawrence, who've done so before us. We are taking on the police, the NHS Trust, and the council, David and Goliath style, and we need all the help that we can get. So please follow Justice for Gaia on social media and support however you can, because that's really the only thing that keeps us going through what frankly sometimes feels like an endless nightmare. Yet with an incredible legal team of formidable feminists, we have fought for and won the right to a full and fearless inquest with a jury to examine the role that these institutions played in Gaia's death. But I don't need an inquest to tell me what I and everyone who gathered at Clapham Common already knows, that the state is failing survivors and that is costing lives. Like Sarah Everard's family, we know what it feels like to have to take your missing person posters down because your girl is never coming home. And the power of Gaia's story is that it could be any of our stories, and that it lays bare not just one failing or one bad guy or even one bad institution, but an entire system that is stuck in the dark ages when it comes to sexual and domestic violence. A system that is not only failing to give us justice, but that is so re-traumatizing most of us would never consider reporting to the police. It is that made Clapham Common such a turning point, that sparked this tsunami of grief and outrage and real fear. I won't talk at length about solutions because this is not a movement that is short on those. We know that the government must ratify the Istanbul Convention on the Prevention of Violence Against Women, which they've signed and simply sat on for a full 8 years. We know we need a complete overhaul of the way the police and the judiciary prosecute abusers and engage with victims. And we know we need major investment in independent, survivor-centered rape crisis support, a system which has been decimated by a decade of Tory austerity. We know we need trauma training for NHS professionals, the police, and judges. And we know we need an enormous public education programme, not just in schools, to teach consent and take on the sexist stereotypes and toxic misogyny. Government awareness initiatives against drink driving and smoking in public spaces proved very effective, and we need something like that for sexual and domestic violence, but we are not going to get it from the goodwill of a government that embodies all of the above. So what we need to make them happen is to build power, speak up and fight back. That just days after Clapham Common, senior judges dared to refuse to even look at the evidence on collapsing prosecutions from the End Violence Against Women Coalition gives some sense of what we're up against. We have a woman leading the Home Office and a woman leading the Metropolitan Police. And I think that their recurrent betrayals have been a much needed crash course for many on the limitations of liberal feminism. Only a radical intersectional feminism rooted in socialist politics and resilient enough to commit now in this moment to become relentless. Only that will be enough. I know it sounds like a lot to ask, but this is a fight for our lives. A seat at the table is not enough. Let's turn the table together and build something better. Justice for Gaia, justice for all of us. Thank you.